Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Noxcast, your Equinox News Recap podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Hope. I am the managing executive editor of the Equinox.
I'm your co-host, Chloe Erno. I'm the news editor for the Equinox, and today we are joined by Charlotte King, our webmaster.
Thank you for having me.
So you guys probably just noticed there's some switching around of the positions that has gone on, and so I'd like to give Charlotte the chance to sort of talk about your new role as webmaster and sort of all things that have to do with that. I know you've been tooling around with the website already for the past few months, just filling in gaps when we need. But just go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So as I sort of previewed on the previous episode, there's some shifting around. I have served for a full year as managing executive editor. And as I enter my 5th year of college, I was kind of ready to put it down for a little bit because it's a lot. It's really a lot. And in terms of where I wanted to go from there, I considered the potential of taking on like a senior staff role or something like that. But I really wanted to be able to explore something new. I've done a lot of reporting, I've done a lot of editing, but the webmaster position is something that gives me the opportunity to explore content management, web design, just a lot of different skills that I'm interested in and haven't necessarily been able to really dive into yet. But as Nate said, I have been definitely spending a lot of time just kind of exploring the dashboard and just all the little ins and outs of the KSC Equinox site. I think it's a lot of fun. There's just a lot of pieces and parts that are available to try and make it as sharp as it can be, and that's something that the website is something that really has earned us a lot of recognition among sort of the collegiate media space over the course of the past I don't even know how many years. So the ability to really make sure that we're operating at that top-notch level going forward is something that I'm really passionate about. But so I think I've gained a lot of valuable skills from just kind of tooling around with the website. But going forward, I am responsible for posting all content that we publish to the KSC Equinox site. So on a weekly basis, as the paper comes out and all of the content from that paper starts to appear on our site. That's me behind the scenes, putting everything together and making sure that all of our news is as accessible as possible to the community here.
Right, yeah, the website is just such a big part of what we do, and so it's really exciting to see you step into that role, and I know it's something that you've also been passionate about is sort of the content management side of things and making sure everything gets to where it needs to go and making it accessible, so really exciting stuff. And I also wanted to give you the chance to talk a little bit about news editor Chloe. So going into the fall, you will be the new co-host of Noxcast, so very exciting stuff.
Yeah, I'm the former copy editor, so I've been at the Equinox since fall, and I think it's a really great role to now be news editor. I've been writing for the news section of the paper since about 2 weeks into my first semester, and I think it's a really great opportunity to actually get to be the news editor and organize all of that. And I'm still going to be part of the group in the same way I was before. And yeah, I think it's just a great role, and it's moving up in the e-board.
Right, yeah. Also really exciting stuff. As a former news editor, it always makes my heart happy to see, when it switched over to Tim and then now switching over to Chloe. Tim will be the new administrative executive editor, so my previous role. So also exciting stuff, just all around. The positions we will have vacant going into the fall are going to be our 2 copy editor positions and multimedia director position. So if you're listening to this, please consider it, especially our incoming first years. This is a great opportunity to gain real experience in just media production on a weekly basis. And especially the editing positions are just so critical to what we do. So really appreciate anybody who might potentially be interested in those. Thank you. And I also wanted to give you, Charlotte, the chance to talk about another sort of passion project that you've kind of gotten off the ground a little bit, which is the tech section. Made a return for the last paper of the year, and Yeah, really exciting stuff in this one, and all three of us contributed something to the section, so that's really cool. And so I'll let you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. One thing about me, as many on the e-board know, is I'm always scheming. I've always got something that I'm like, what if we did this, and just like launch some new aspect of the Equinox's operation, because like I don't know, maybe it's just like a bigger is better kind of thing, but I always have so many like thoughts about how we could reach a new like area of campus, and try to really like explore that, or reach some other type of media, and explore that, and just like create new opportunities. But so yeah, the tech section is something that I had been talking about since I was arts and entertainment editor, last year, because out of the two, or out of all the beats that I've reported on in my time so far, those are kind of the two main ones that I've been really interested in, are arts reporting and tech reporting. And there's definitely the opportunity to report on technology topics in the news section, but it's the kind of thing where like technology is such a crucial and just like ubiquitous part of all of our lives at this point. Like, not to sort of beat a dead horse and say the thing that we all know, but like even just having like a phone in our pocket all the time, or like being so connected with our coursework via something like Canvas, or just any of these things that like connect our daily lives to technology. I really think it's an area of reporting that deserves so much more attention than honestly a lot of outlets give it, or maybe feel like they're able to give it. And so, I was always glad when I got the opportunity to report on a tech story in the news section. But yeah, the beginning of this year and now the end of this year, both for me were opportunities to try and kind of soft launch the idea of a tech section. So I was really proud to be able to pull one more off by the end of this year. We had planned to do it more frequently, but things come up. It's a busy life. But yeah, so I'm really, really happy with the way this came out. I contributed 2 articles to it, and did the layout as well. And I just think it's like such a great package of really like relevant and in some cases pressing topics pertaining to, again, the ways in which technology connects to our everyday lives, and we might not even think about it. But that fact, the fact that we were able to so easily pull together a package of stories within a week's notice, it is, I think, a proof of concept. The fact that it is such an important thing. But so, huge thanks to both of you for contributing to it, because yeah, it's such a passion project of mine. The one other thing I was going to add that was just like new and exciting for me was, so I did this whole piece about 4chan, the notorious image board that's been around since like the early 2000s and has a lot of interesting folks on it. And there was the whole story with the hack, and it went down and it came back, and this is all fairly recent and kind of crazy and unexpected. But I was really interested in that as a topic, so I did just kind of like a featurey rundown of like, what does this all mean? Why do we care? What could this mean for the future? But I did a graphic for it, which I've been saying for a while that I had wanted to do some type of graphic. I'm not much of an artist, but I feel like my skill level is at least enough to just put something together. And so I just wanted to be able to check another box, to be honest. I've done the reporting, I've done the editing, I've done photography when I have to, I've done video stuff. And so now I can say that I also published a work of graphic art.
Yeah, it was really cool to to see that. And yeah, like tech sections are sort of a mainstay of a lot of like professional publications. I feel like they have sort of like offshoots where you can view all the content relating to that. I also wanted to give you the chance, Chloe, to talk a little bit because you've contributed to the previous tech section and this one, and you've taken some news stories that also have a little bit of a tech angle. So if you wanted to talk a little bit about sort of some of your interest in tech as well.
Yeah, my last story for this year was actually for the text part of the newspaper, and it was about proposed changes to the Keene.edu website. And that was really interesting to find out about. I got to talk to one of the people that actually puts together the edits and the changes, and I found out that the changes are proposed directly from the school. And in this case, it was to help incoming students navigate the website better. They found that in terms of financial aid and first year students who maybe don't have any experience with college, whose parents didn't go to college, they wanted to make it easier for them to navigate the website. And that was kind of their main goal, just make it simpler for them. And so that was really interesting to find out about. I believe my first piece for the tech part of the newspaper was last semester. And it's just a really interesting section of the paper to write about. There's a lot of different areas that just kind of correspond to it. And I personally found it very just fascinating to find out more about, since I'm not the most technology dependent person or the best at technology. So it was really interesting just to talk to those people who are more experts in it than I am.
Definitely. And I think, the first go about it, the tech section was really cool. And I think this one, we outdid ourselves, or really, Charlotte helped outdo ourselves with this one. And the 4chan thing was really the impetus for it. I know you came up with the idea of doing an article about that. And then it came into like, we should probably just do the whole section again. And so we had the 4chan piece. We had a piece that you've been stewing on for a while about Web of Science research database being cut, the service to it being cut by the Mason Library due to budgetary concerns. And the top story in the tech section was a feature piece that I had written about the audiovisual operations staff in the Student Center, better known as the tech team. And I had a lot of fun working on that piece, I have to say. Just the whole vibe of like how each of the workers like feel about the work environment. I think Trinity Nay is just such a passionate person when it comes to the work of the audiovisual and like accessibility, even things that you like don't think about when you think like, oh, they just, do this thing or do that thing. They do a lot of work, especially like depending on the week. Any event really needs some sort of support is what Trinity Nay had told me when I interviewed her for the article. Even something simple would need like some audio support when it comes to, you want everybody to be able to hear what you're saying at a presentation or a speech or whatever that may be. So, just the adaptability, the helping each other out, students gaining experience for the fields that they might want to go into, whether that be something in the film realm or, theater tech, things like that. So I thought it was a really good way to highlight our students while also keeping that tech angle. But I did want to turn it over to you, Charlotte, to talk a little bit.
Yeah, I thought it was a great piece, a lot of fun, and just a really nice way, I think, to, it's a very featurey piece, but that's a good way to kind of showcase, like, okay, it's the tech section, and sometimes we're going to talk about some topics that are a little dense, but also we can have, content that's still really student-focused, because, for these students, like, that's their job, is to go and facilitate all of these various like audiovisual operations. Go figure. But I thought it was a great piece, and I just think like, I'm somebody who has in the past worked in similar positions, and I just think like the opportunity to spotlight the work that the tech team does, because that's work that a lot of the time gets kind of swept under the rug. It's kind of invisible. It's made invisible in the sense that it's like, wow, look at this cool event that's going on, and that's great. But also, let's hear it for the people who are like behind the scenes making it possible. And I will say, I do think like, I've been to a lot of events on campus where people who are hosting the event will like give a shout out to the tech team. And I always think that's nice. Like the fact that we all, as a community seem to kind of like appreciate the role that plays. But Yeah, super super cool, and I think a very fitting way to sort of parade the tech section one last time for this year.
Yeah. Did you add anything you want to talk about when it comes to that, Chloe?
Yeah, I definitely agree in terms of just highlighting the tech team's support for the campus. They really do so much for the school, and you go onto the Keene.edu website and you just expect it to work, and you don't really think about the actual work that goes into making it run for you. So I think it's really nice calling out just what they do for us and all that they do around campus, because it really is just a broad range of setting up all these activities, all these different events on campus, all the websites we use to get around campus, and they're really just incredible.
Yeah, I think it was just a really well-rounded section in terms of like more some of the offbeat stories, talking about the 4chan situation, but then also talking about directly relevant things to the school, the tech team, and then also the website. And then also I did a piece that was just an online sourced brief about the TikTok ban extension. And the Web of Science cut, of course, is very relevant to the campus. So really exciting stuff. Go pick up the paper if you haven't already. Go look it up on the site. It will be posted soon after this is released. So go check it out.
Someday.
Yeah. And then moving on to our news top story, which is sort of almost in the tech realm still, because Eric Brown, who's a senior graduating computer science major, got a big scholarship to go to Dartmouth for his master's degree. And this is sort of something that I covered before. He did some research in pain detection in Alzheimer's patients, and sort of how work when it comes to the medical field in particular, and seeing how we could probably better support patients or better understand their needs. Really interesting stuff when I covered that. Really cool topic. And, seeing just like a student excel so well in an area of campus that maybe not a lot of people talk about as much is really nice to see. And also seeing just, our owls go on to further endeavors and having the financial support to be able to keep doing the amazing work that they're doing. Really cool. And so I'll turn it over to you to talk about that.
Yeah, I got to talk to Eric Brown for a different article, actually. It was about Dr. Wei Liu and his research here. And Eric Brown is one of his top students. And so seeing the doctor in that article and seeing their bond to one another was also very heartfelt. And seeing Eric Brown just progress in his research and as a student has been really great. I'm glad I got to talk to him for a different article, even if it was just briefly. And I'm really happy for him for this new turn in his life.
Yeah, it's really nice to see him just continue to succeed, because I don't know Eric personally, and I haven't had the privilege of interviewing him, but just the research that he's doing, I think, is really important, and is something that is really, it's founded on compassion. We've talked about this before a little bit with the previous articles, but just like, I do have high hopes for the ability of medical research like this to make like legitimate just day-to-day differences in hopefully eventually alleviating the pain that can come with Alzheimer's. And so I think that's great, and I'm super super happy to see that he has the financial support needed to go and pursue further endeavors. I I was gonna say when we were making the news budget for this week, and it's still, we weren't quite sure exactly where everything was gonna go, how everything was gonna shake out. I was kind of hoping I would maybe be able to steal this story for the tech section. It didn't work out like that, which is fine. I think it worked out well enough, and I think it's a nice front page to end off on, saying, hey, here's a student that we've covered a couple times in the past. Look at what he's doing now. But yeah, really, really great stuff. And one more, I want to give a shout out to the fact that we managed to get one more top story out of Nicole.
Yeah, it was really weird seeing, the final paper, everybody sort of gets demoted, who's graduating gets demoted to Equinox staff. So seeing that by a line for the first time ever since I've been here, and since like early fall 2021, it's just really, really strange. But I'm glad we were able to give her that last top story. And just, the story is a real example of like using technology to do some like material good. And I think we definitely need some good news. Sometimes I feel like the past few weeks we've done good trying to integrate whenever something positive comes up, and being able to highlight some work being done by students or some positive change that's happening on campus is always good. Um, but with that, I would like to move on to the student life top story, which is some event coverage that our now previous student life editor, Orion Corbin, did about the annual spring carnival. Pretty exciting stuff. They brought back the Ferris wheel this year. There's always some rides and some food, and they give out shirts. It's a really popular event. And usually it's one of those ones where it's like whenever it comes around, it's going to be top story. A lot of people care a lot about it, look forward to it, and some really good visuals as well from our new photo editor, Emma. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
When I went there with a friend, it was definitely great. We really enjoyed it, especially the free food part. That was incredible. And it was really just a nice way to like decompress before the finals happened and everything kind of kicked into gear. And it was just a really chill environment. It was a lot less, I'd say, loud and just disorienting than I thought it would be. And it seemed like everyone there was really having a good time. The food was pretty good, and it was just overall fun. It was a nice thing to do for the students as a way to just give them a breather before the end of the year and a chance to get out with friends.
Yeah, no, Carnival was hype. And you could tell, you could hear it. I missed like the first half of it because I was just like locked down in the office trying to square everything away. But I got to see some of it, and yeah, definitely like there were big crowds. People were having fun. The food was awesome. They had this cool like iced coffee station where you could like get all these different like flavor shots and whatever in it. But yeah, no, really cool stuff, and definitely like I want to double down on the shout out to new photo editor Emma, because those pictures were really, really nice.
Yeah, and we were able to do a cool small photo spread as well. So again, check out the paper. But yeah, this is one of two events that student government also puts on every year. The first being Pumpkin Palooza. So shout out to them for putting on the event. It's always a big thing trying to put on any event, but really with this, all the coordination with getting those rides there. I mean, I can't imagine. So congratulations to them for being able to do that. But now I would like to move on to our editorial, which was sort of just about professional preparation. Do we think the college is doing enough to support students once they graduate and leave the nest? This was kind of a topic that we landed on last minute when we were talking Monday night about what the editorial could potentially be about. I think it's a good way to sort of just end off the year now that, a lot of people are graduating. How are we feeling about, what the college is doing and what it might not be doing to make sure that students feel ready once they go into the professional world, because obviously college is such a big part of, a lot of people go to college in order to gain that experience and feel more prepared for when the time comes to graduate, and they can, go into the workforce more confidently. So we asked that question, and we really hit on that we think that a lot of this is up to, individual students to really pursue opportunities, whether it be in their own department or through extracurriculars, student organizations playing a big part of that, and, internships, gaining real experience on campus, work like independent studies, anytime that students can do work on their own that really can add to their portfolio and further add to their resume. So we said a lot of this lies on students, but then also there's potential to maybe improve the first year seminar course to add in some financial literacy aspects. Maybe there could potentially be a senior seminar act as bookends to the college experience at Keene State, and sort of to make sure that, again, everybody feels supported as they prepare to leave the nest. But yeah, I'll turn it over to you to talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. So I'm a senior, but I've also only been here for a couple years, so I'm kind of in a weird spot. But um, yeah, I think a lot of it does fall on students to try and make the most out of the experience they have. I do also think that it's the kind of thing where, like, you come into college, you don't, it's a totally new, just like world. And so I think there does there is some responsibility for the college and I guess just the community as a whole to try and like point new students in a direction that's going to work for them. And that's not always easy because there's a lot of different, that can look very different for different people. But I don't know. I think it's hard because to some degree you have to get a little lucky. You have to be able to find the right thing that's going to get you, further. Like, for me, that was the Equinox. Like, I came in as a journalism major and that has worked out for me. But in terms of like professional development skills and finding a community that I can connect with, of people working in my field, like, this student org has been that. And, um, I was aware of the Equinox, but basically the reason I ended up there is because I met the right people at the right times. And so it was a little bit of luck. And so I don't know. I think definitely the most actionable thing would probably be to try and adapt some of the curriculum for FYS and potentially introduce some type of senior seminar. Because well, I always say I'm a lucky duck and I never had to take an FYS. But from what I hear, it can be pretty just whatever. But so using that time to just like instill in people a little bit more of a sense of, again, like wanting to go and pursue those opportunities. And that's really the trick, right? Is like, because you can put 1,000 different opportunities in front of somebody and say, this is what's available. But unless you teach them how to want to do that, it's only worth so much.
So as a first-year student, I can definitely talk to the fact that FYS is not necessarily up to par right now. It can definitely be improved, and I know that a lot of other first years definitely feel the same way about it. It was nice for the editorial to see some positive opinions about resources on campus and that the school gives us those resources. But as Charlotte pointed out, there is some degree of luck when it comes to it and finding both the right people and the right groups for you. I think the school could improve it. What they're doing right now isn't necessarily bad, but there are ways that could be improved in the future and give students just more opportunities.
Yeah, I think this is something that we go back to a lot in many editorials, is sort of how we can better utilize FYS as sort of just a course that everyone has to take when they get in here. And our advisor, Dr. Loffer, talked a little bit about sort of the conversations is always balancing the student affairs side of things, who want to talk more about just like general resources and things like that and involvement on campus, but then also the academic side of things. A lot of folks there want to sort of ask, if you're getting credit for this, it is one credit course. There should be some academic component as well. So trying to hit that balance. But we always think that there's ways that we can integrate some very useful information for incoming college students to better feel comfortable during their experience and then feel more ready again for when the time comes to graduate. So I think it was a pretty good discussion. I know it's difficult because, our board is full of people of various years who have more experience with the college or less experience with the college, but I still think a lot of thoughtful discussion was had about sort of the resources that are there and how much, initiative needs to be taken, or if there's anything the college can do to like better push people in the direction of things that could benefit them later on professionally. But now I would like to move on to the A&E top story, which is some event coverage of SolarFest, which was a collaborative event from WKNH and EcoReps. our new student life editor, Justin Dearborn, covered this, and I thought it was some really solid, just again event coverage. I know this was kind of an event where a lot of things moved around. It was supposed to be outside, and the idea was you would power the electric components with solar power. Unfortunately, due to the weather, it was, after a few hours, it was downpouring and thundering. So a week beforehand, about there, they made the decision to move it inside, which is unfortunate. But I still think, in spite of that, they put on a pretty cool little event. The Equinox participated in the tabling there, and we had a good time. There was some grub had, there was some smoothies. I got a few extra stickers to add to my water bottle. So no complaints from me. And again, anytime that you can put on an event of this caliber and, have some live music as well, was a really nice touch. I'm impressed, and kudos to WKH and Eco Reps for being able to do that.
Yeah, no, I think this is a good way, because the other facet of this is like Solarfest hasn't happened in years, and so they're bringing it back, and hoping to make this, the tradition that it once was. So, the weather was definitely unfortunate, and unpredictable as ever, especially in this region. But yeah, I think overall it was a successful, just sort of re-debut of an event that has been such a big part of Keene State history. So the music was cool. There was snacks to be had, and we had a good time tabling with our fellow orgs and just talking to people in the community, and handing out shirts, things like that. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they can do maybe next year to kind of just continue to improve on sort of the established formula here, and make sure that it can stay alive for all of the classes going forward.
Yeah, and major respect for still managing to hold it even with the weather conditions that we had on those days. And it was still a really great event. I popped by with some friends. It was cool there. It was really awesome. And the fact that they managed to do all that with the rainy weather was just absolutely incredible. And it really shows the flexibility that they're able to manage with that kind of conditions. And I'm glad they didn't cancel it. I think canceling it would have been so much worse, especially since it was one of the last few events that we had on campus before the end of the year. So I think that was a really good thing to keep it going for students and to bring back that tradition.
Yeah, the ability to like really quickly pivot something. I know it's hard because I know that probably going into it, they were really set on the idea of bringing it back to the full force and really having it outside and solar powered. And it must have been a really difficult decision to do that. But I think it was the right decision given the weather. I think it just wouldn't have worked out. So again, just props for doing that. And I also wanted to give a shout out to the tech team who worked on that event that day. Really long shifts. They had folks working the open mic in the first floor of the student center, and then the second floor where the bands were playing, the headliners, and then just general support in the rest of the event. There was a lot of work that went on into it from that point of view. And talking to some tech folks for my piece, I kind of have an added appreciation now for just everything that they do, and this is sort of one example of that.
If allowed, I'd also give there's so much great music at Solarfest, but give a shout out to a couple Equinox staff members and friends of the show who performed at the open mic as half of Blowflies and gave a great set.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So shout out to them as well. And I would like to move on to our top story in sports, which was sort of an A&E-esque story as well, but it's these two capstone seniors from the film department who created a documentary about the 2024-2025 men's basketball season. It follows them from the very beginning of the year and the LEC championship, and when Octavio Brito was awarded by the city, and just all of like the inner aspects within like the locker room and having cameras in all these different places that you normally wouldn't see them. There was a lot talked about from the filmmaker's point of view of like it sort of being awkward at first and taking some adjusting to do on the part of like the team to get used to the fact that they're kind of being recorded most of the time, but you need to get that footage and some of those most like intimate moments, I feel like, in order to fully understand like what the players went through and all the hard work that went into it. And I feel like I haven't had the chance to watch it myself yet, but it's a project that's like so massive. I think the documentary is like 40 minutes or 50 minutes or something like that. It ended up pretty long, and being able to piece that all together for senior capstone, it's sort of another example. We talked previously about the capstone presentations, but really like the diversity within the program of, folks doing, more animated shorter films, but then doing like, more creative, just films as well, and really just going out in the field, and then things like this where it's like a sports documentary. I just like the diversity is amazing. But sports editor Jakob did a really good job with this one and sort of just highlighting all the work that went into that. But I'll turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think a project of that caliber really deserves that kind of attention. So much hard work got put into that, and so much just effort in general. I think it's really great these past few weeks before the school gets out that the seniors have really been given a chance to shine in the paper, as you spoke to with the senior capstone films that we focused on. And it's really great just drawing attention to what they're doing before they leave Keene. And they're really putting everything they have into these final projects, and it's just incredible to see all their hard work on screen.
My first reaction to like reading the article about this film with like the Equinox lenses on, anytime I hear about any like really good documentary film that a student is making, I'm always like, I wish we could publish that. I wish we had come up with that idea. But yeah, no, major props. And I think like maybe to some degree it's just like serendipity, but like what a great time to be covering the men's basketball team. I mean, I know that like the reputation of just being like top notch has been around and it's deserved, but like especially this year with like just absolutely crushing it, making history and really like showing their stuff. Like it's such a great time to have, pulled all this together and really shown off like what it's like to be, like to be in it and to just be in that mindset and that team mentality and like to make all of that happen. I think that's a huge accomplishment, obviously on the part of the players, but obviously also on the part of the filmmakers to have been able to capture that as it happened. And yeah, really, really impressive stuff. And I think it definitely kind of stood out as a little bit of a star among sort of all of the film projects that have happened this year. And so I was glad that it got sort of its own, distinct screening to allow people to really soak it in. And, I've heard from folks who have seen it who, are totally like not in the sports world at all, don't follow any of that stuff, that like they saw it and just got totally sucked in to like the story that these guys have of banding together and just making it happen again and again. So yeah, really, really cool stuff. And this is something we've had our eye on for a while. We had heard that this was in production, and so I'm glad to see it come to fruition and, for this last issue of the year, be able to say like, here it is.
Yeah, just like that documentarian style content is sort of a lot of what we try to do with our like multimedia work. So really like the long format and just the totality of just capturing every moment from the season, good and bad. Really amazing work. And I also shared that thought that like I wish we could have done something like that or had the foresight. But if you are interested in multimedia work for next year, we are also open to your ideas on if you want to do a documentary for us. That'd be quite amazing. But I think that about does it for this recap. This is the last news recap of the year, which is sad, but then also exciting because, next year we're going to be bigger and better as always. But as always, I would like to extend a special thanks to the composer of the music for Noxcast, our very own Equinox alum, Zach Keenan, as well as the creator of the Noxcast graphic, our very own art director, Elijah Fisher, and the editor of Noxcast multimedia director, Jakob Hall. And I've been Nathan Hope, managing executive editor.
I'm Chloe Erno, the new news editor.
And I'm Charlotte.
Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful summer to everybody watching.